Hey everybody, welcome into a Flyers game preview. I'm Kevin Durso. Tonight, the Flyers host the Buffalo Sabres in the first game of a back-to-back. Before getting started, this video is brought to you as part of Flyers coverage on sportstalkphilly.com and the YWT podcast. Get all of your Flyers coverage at sportstalkphilly.com. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at Kevin_Durso and find more coverage from me over at 973ESPN.com. And of course, be sure to listen and subscribe to the YWT podcast. A new episode just launched last night, this morning on sportstalkphilly.com, last night everywhere else on all the platforms you listen to podcasts. So please listen and subscribe. We greatly appreciate it. So as we get into this game, the third game of the season for the Flyers, we should start by going back to Friday night for a moment, and the Flyers picking up a 5-2 win over the Pittsburgh Penguins. Travis Konecny scores a hat trick. Goals from Ivan Provorov and Oscar Lindblom into an empty net. Another win for Carter Hart. One of the big things, though, obviously, is the absence of Sean Couturier in that game and losing him 45 seconds in, or after 45 seconds of ice time for him, and now having to try to fill that void so early in the season. You know, I don't think that there was a lot of thought to trying to have to fill the void of such a large presence like Sean Couturier so early in the season. And that's a problem for the Flyers because it's one of those guys who I think they can't afford to lose. He's a guy who plays so responsibly in the defensive zone that you really just can't afford to be without him for too long. And as a result of that, you know, I think that you take into account that you need everybody else to step up, but at the same time, it's a guy who you just can't replace in that area of the ice. I think the Flyers can survive this absence in the scoring area because I think they have so many young guys who can contribute. If Oscar Lindblom keeps taking the steps back to normal like he was before his diagnosis, if Nolan Patrick continues to come back strong, if Joel Farabee continues to pile up the points, if Travis Konecny continues to pile up the points, and they've got the guys who can get the job done. I think that the area where they're going to struggle with this is defensively, and it's going to take, early on in this game, I'd like to see how the Flyers adjust to being without Sean Couturier and to having some time to be prepared for that, as opposed to losing him after 45 seconds of ice time and having to try to recover all night. I do think there was also an element of the quick start getting into their heads a little bit. They got off to a 3-0 lead, gave up a power play goal, and then gave up another one. And it was almost a snowball effect that put you right back on your heels and made it a very close game again. I think maybe the Flyers took for granted after getting up 3-0 that with the goalie out and Pittsburgh onto their backup, lots of things, where maybe they felt in their control fully, and they were not completely in control of that game. They were still playing loose. And even though, it took a sloppy game from Pittsburgh to kind of even that out. So that's the hope, is that now they take those steps, they move forward, play a more structured defensive game. And that, to me, will be a key difference in this game. Buffalo's trying to get their first win. They've come close a couple of times. They were behind pretty big in the first game they played against Washington, but they found a way to rally back to get that game within a goal. And the same thing with the game against Washington in their second game of the season. They were right there the whole time. Very close game, 1-goal game almost the whole way through. And that tells me that this team can be competitive, and you can't take them lightly. Every single game is going to matter this year, and this is a team that's out and hungry to try to get that first win of the year. So definitely be keeping an eye out for them, because you can't just gloss over this game and think, oh, well, the next two games are against a team that doesn't have a win yet. It's not that easy in this division, and the Flyers need to take this game very seriously. Let's get to the goalie matchup for tonight, the projected goalie matchup, and we start with Carter Hart once again in goal. And Carter Hart had a really strong performance on Friday, in my opinion. The goal that he gave up to Brandon Tanev is a rebound that he could probably control a little bit better, but other than that, I really don't know what else he could have done differently in this game. He was sharp pretty much throughout the entire game. He definitely had to be their best player at times, and that's important as well, that they got the performance out of him that they've come to expect. It's no surprise he's back in goal. This is a guy they're going to continue to go to constantly as they push through and try to get off to a good start this season. It's very evident that they're going to keep going to him, so I'm not surprised at all that he's in goal for this game. For the Buffalo Sabres, no official announcement on who the goalie is, but the expectation is it will be Linus Ullmark. He was the first goalie off the ice at the morning skate. He was the more solid goaltender for the Buffalo Sabres in those first two games. He allowed 2 goals, kept them in the game the whole way, really made this a competitive game, and kept it close. And I think that's what the Sabres are looking for. They don't have the most ideal goalie situation. They don't have the best goaltending duo in the division. but they're trying to make do with what they have, and Omar probably gives them the best shot to win games actively at the moment, just based on the early impressions of this season. So he'll get the go first. It is a back-to-back, so we already know that Brian Elliott's getting a start coming up here on Tuesday when these two teams meet again. I wouldn't be surprised if that means that Carter Hutton is going for Buffalo in the next game as well, just to try to keep that balance going. Buffalo's probably going to have even more balance when it comes to their goalies than other teams do. So it's not going to be a surprise if this is where they go and what they try to do. Let's go to the players to watch now. And we start with Kevin Hayes for the Flyers. And I picked Kevin Hayes as a player to watch for this game because this is the guy who I think is going to be necessary to fill the defensive void of Sean Couturier. They can pick up offense in a lot of different areas. Okay, they could get offense from anybody who's really provided it early on in the season. They could get offense from Morgan Frost, who's going to be the direct replacement for Sean Couturier. But I think Kevin Hayes is going to be the closest thing the Flyers have to a defensive replacement for Sean Couturier, and there really is no replacement. But I want to watch him, and I almost want to watch him less for the offensive side and maybe him contributing in that way, and more for his defensive play. I want to see how he plays in his own zone, how he takes charge of this role, both at 5-on-5 and on the penalty kill. That's the two areas for me that are most important to watch from him specifically. For the Sabres, I'm going with a newcomer to the lineup, the biggest free agent signing that they made in the offseason, obviously, because he was one of the top free agents available. That's Taylor Hall, and he's made an immediate impact on this team. For one, he scored their first goal of the season, and not only that, but to me, he's changed the dynamic of their top line. Now you have somebody next to Jack Eichel who really gives you something that makes them dynamic. And that's not to say that Jack Eichel on his own isn't a dynamic player, but when you can put bigger talent around your top player, then it just creates even more of a scary situation for any opposing defense. That's why I pick Hayes on the other side, because Hayes is going to have to probably be responsible for shutting down this line of Taylor Hall and Jack Eichel, and trying to figure out ways to keep them silenced, because I think that if you can silence them for the most part, you have a good chance to win this game. So that's why I'm really focused on them, and I'm looking at them primarily. So those are the two guys that I'm picking as my players to watch, and that's our game preview. Be sure to check back here after the game. Kyle Collington will have a post-game video for you. I'll be back with you ahead of Tuesday's game, so short turnaround for me. I'll be back tomorrow with a new one to preview the Tuesday game, the second end of the back-to-back against the Buffalo Sabres on Tuesday. Of course, you can always hear both Kyle and myself on the episodes of the YWT podcast. New one, again, just came out in the last 24 hours, so definitely go check that out. Once again, be sure to subscribe to the YWT podcast on YouTube to be notified of all of our game previews and recaps. Be sure to follow along during tonight's game. I will have coverage on Twitter over at Kevin_Durso. Game updates are over at Flyerdelphia on Twitter. You can check out my game preview of tonight's game before the game and get the post-game recap and 5 takeaways over at sportstalkphilly.com and 97.3 ESPN.com, all after the game. So with that, enjoy the game. We'll see you next time, tomorrow, in fact, for another Flyers game preview.